Okay, brilliant. I think we'll kick things off. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our April webinar, Mobilising Your Location Data with ArcGIS. So before we kick off, firstly, we'll just start with a quick introduction. So I'm Claudia Hodgson. I'm a customer success consultant here at Esri UK, and I work closely with our fellow presenters, Eve Selby, and also a customer success consultant, and James Findley, one of our graduates here at Esri UK. Just to quickly cover the housekeeping side of things, as always, this webinar will be recorded and shared in the follow-up email for you to have a watch later on, or you can share with colleagues as well. In that follow-up email, there will also be a handful of useful resources for each of the topics that we're covering today for, again, you to take a closer look at. And there'll also be a survey linked in that email as well, where you can provide feedback on today's webinar and help us to build future webinars to suit you guys as well. And as I mentioned, for those of you that came in a little bit earlier, there will be a Q&A at the end of this webinar. So please feel free throughout to submit questions all throughout. We're going to get to as many of them as we can at the end. So keep posting as many questions as you have on there. The Q&A will be hosted on Slido, so you can either scan the QR code that's on screen now with your mobile, or you can head to slido.com and you can enter the event code, which is ESRI1904. There will also be some polls available on Slido, which will become available a little bit closer to the end of the webinar, and there will also be some feedback polls as well, so we'd really appreciate your response there. And as I mentioned, if you'd like to provide any additional feedback, the survey linked in the follow-up email gives plenty of opportunity to do that as well. So in today's session, we're firstly going to introduce all of our mobile applications before then focusing on 3 of the core mobile apps. So that's ArcGIS QuickCapture, ArcGIS Field Maps, and ArcGIS Survey123. And then through 3 different technical demonstrations, today we're going to show you how these mobile apps can help you to efficiently collect data in the field. Hopefully show you a number of tips and tricks to make that data collection as easy as possible for the mobile worker and something that suits your workflows as well. So let's go ahead and let's dive straight in. So these are all of our mobile offerings. We currently have 6 apps suited for field operations. Now, with the first of which really being ArcGIS Field Maps, which is increasingly becoming our all-in-one application for both data capture and editing as well. It's already combined the capabilities of Collector, Explorer, and Tracker, and its integration of ArcGIS Workforce and Navigator is also in the roadmap for field maps. ArcGIS Survey123 is our mobile app that's focused on the form-centric collection method. And then ArcGIS QuickCapture is all about the kind of big button experience, so rapid data capture, so essentially what it says on the tin. Sweet for ArcGIS is our app that's dedicated to rule-based editing. So this means you can collect accurate data the first time and every time with those rules built into the app that you can configure. It also supports the mobile worker with offline use and location sharing capabilities as well. But today we're going to be taking a look at the apps that are included within our mobile worker user type. So that's Field Maps, Survey123, and QuickCapture. If you are interested in learning more about Sweet for ArcGIS, it's going to be showcased in one of our webinars later in the year, so do keep an eye out for that. And it's also going to be, we're sending out some useful links in the follow-up email for you to take a closer look at those as well. So let's move on to our first app. Now, ArcGIS QuickCapture is the fastest way to collect field observations. It provides a really simple application where field workers can rapidly collect data, including all of its fields from, it could be a moving car, a bike, on foot, or even from a helicopter, all with the touch of a button. Both its desktop configuration and its mobile application is incredibly intuitive. So you don't need any training at all to configure or use this application, and you can implement it almost immediately as well. It also allows for the recording of workers' current locations out in the field or where they've been, or you can actually collect both of them as well. So just to show how straightforward both QuickCapture's configuration and its data collection is, we're going to go into QuickCapture's projects page. So let me just share my screen. Brilliant. So here we are. This is the kind of the first page that you'll see when you open up QuickCapture's configuration. From here, you can go ahead and create a project from either an existing layer or from a template already made. Now, when creating a project, QuickCapture gets to work and it's going to build not only the application project, but it's also going to create a web map and a dashboard for you to configure and visualize all of that data. If you're creating a project from a template, QuickCapture is also going to create the layers for that data to be fed into that you're out in the field collecting. So in this case, I've already got a feature layer, which I'll just show you in my online content here. I've already got a feature layer, in this case called Species Watch, which I'm wanting to collect the location of different species in a certain habitat that I'm going to go and survey. So I've got a number of different fields here that I'm wanting to collect, and I've already configured this in with my feature layer, as you can see here. So if I just head back to QuickCapture, I can start from an existing layer, and I can navigate to the layer that I've just shown there. You'll notice as soon as I've clicked this layer, we've got a pop-up along the bottom here, giving us the option to create button from a layer symbology. Now, what this is going to do in my case is it's going to create a button for every single species I've set out in the feature layer. So it's saving me a huge amount of time in creating all of these buttons for all of the species, and it's already done all of that for us. So this is a really basic template of our application already. As I said, we've already got all of the buttons for every species that I've specified in my feature layer. But we do need to do a little bit of work here before we can take it out into the field. Firstly, I actually need to set up what data I want each of these buttons to collect. So if I click on, let's click black grouse to start with, I can go ahead to the right-hand side, and we've got these two different windows, appearance and data. If I go onto my data tab and I scroll down a little bit, you can see these are all of the fields that I showed in my feature layer. And here we can specify how we're going to collect all of this data. So for species name, that's automatically a fixed value because we've already got that in our feature layer. So I can go ahead and leave that as is. For the data collection, we're going to make use of the device variable. And it's going to, QuickCapture is automatically going to populate this field based on the capture time from my device. So it's automatically doing that for us and we don't need to worry. For the collector, again, I'm going to make use of the device variable, and we can actually retrieve the full name of the user that's signed in to that QuickCapture app. Lastly, the location of the species. Again, we're going to go ahead and use the device variable and use the location DMS. So what all of this means is it's for fields that our mobile worker does not need to worry about collecting. It's going to automatically populate all of these fields for us, meaning that not only it's making it easier for the mobile worker, but it's reducing the risk of that human error entries as well. And you don't need to kind of fight around trying to find your GPS coordinates in what could be kind of rough conditions out in the field. QuickCapture also gives you the option to capture photos in the field as well. So you'll see on the right-hand side here, we've got this toggle for capturing an image. And as soon as I then turn that on, we've got this camera icon on our button here. So this is all within the one application again. So we're just capturing images. As soon as we click that button, it's automatically capturing all of the fields and providing us with the opportunity to capture an image of the species as well. Now, ArcGIS QuickCapture configuration is really straightforward, and that is all that we need to do to be able to capture the data of our species. But I'm going to want to go ahead and actually improve the appearance of this a little bit. So with just a few alterations, we can better organize and visualize this app to, again, just make it as effortless a data collection method for our team as possible to take into the field. So here I have the exact same application. We've just gone ahead and done a couple of tweaks to the appearance. Firstly, we've actually added an image to each of these buttons, so providing a bit of a visual aid for those workers in the field so that they can identify the species as well. We've also increased the size of these buttons, again, just making it easier for the worker and not giving them a chance to accidentally select the wrong button. We've also made use of the group buttons option, which is just here, allowing us to then kind of categorize each of these buttons and break it down into a simpler format for our mobile worker. In this case, we've made use of categorizing them into the habitat in which each of these species reside. QuickCapture also has location sharing capabilities as well. So when you're dispatching your field teams out into especially remote and isolated environments, it's essential as a duty of care that we know where our teams are. So under the additional settings button, which are the 3 dots up here, we can head to the location sharing tab. Now, as soon as I turn this on, we're then given the option to be able to ask for the user's last known locations or to collect their tracks as well. And we can do both of those as well if we want both pieces of information. Now, it's important to say here that the user themselves has to authorize sharing their location. So when they open up the QuickCapture app on their mobile, they'll then be asked whether they're happy to share their location. If they do authorize that, we can then gather all of this additional information using the device's location, and it can help us to monitor and ensure the safety of my field team, as well as also actually providing an audit trail to understand the area that's being surveyed as well. And all of this is automatically being captured. So it really is making it a really easy, straightforward process for our mobile workers. So just to show you how this app can be used by our mobile workers, I'm just going to head back to the slides. And here we've got the app in action. Now you might recognize a couple of these furry friends from our annual conference last year. But here we had a team going out into a nature reserve in the Scottish Highlands, and they were able to monitor the abundance of wildlife, capturing all of the details automatically by touching the button, as well as also capturing images to support that data. Now, we weren't too lucky seeing all of these species, so hopefully you will appreciate our imagination here, and you can see how simple and intuitive QuickCapture can be, and its strength as a simple, rapid data collection method for our field operations. So we hope today, we hope you've seen here with QuickCapture just how simple it can be and how efficient it can be as a data capture method. So with that, I'm now going to pass over to James, who's going to introduce ArcGIS Field Maps.
Thank you, Claudia. Field Maps is a comprehensive field navigation and data collection app within the ArcGIS ecosystem. It provides a streamlined data collection experience through smart forms and a simple user interface. In addition, with location sharing, you can alert workers to hazards out in the field by creating geofences and sending alerts directly to their phone. Lastly, ArcGIS Field Maps works in disconnected environments, meaning that you can capture data offline, then sync your updates back to ArcGIS Online when you restore internet connection. Field Maps is perfect for workflows where workers need to navigate to locations in the field and perform data collection or regular inspections. Here I'm going to show you a hypothetical scenario of a map of hydrants and their statuses across Aylesbury. In order to keep a map like this up to date with the information about all the statuses of the hydrants, we need to send workers out to perform regular inspections. The great thing about field maps is that we can transform this map and all of these layers into simple to use forms for our users to go out into the field, navigate to the hydrants, and perform their inspections. To do this, we can hop over to the Field Maps designer. Here we can choose the map that we've previously configured. And once it opens up, we'll see all of the layers and the related tables that we've configured on the map. The easiest way to start configuring a form against a layer is to convert a pop-up that you've already configured. So if I convert the hydrants pop-up, we can see some of the fields that we've previously used. However, we might not want workers to go out and edit all of these fields, such as choosing what the pipe ID is, who it's owned by, or the latitude and longitude while they're out in the field. We can also make fields non-editable, so they can still see it, but they can't edit it. Lastly, we don't need to stop here. If we want to provide some more detail for our workers, such as allowing them to better understand how the form operates, we can add some more information. So we can rename kind of the field alias or the display name to something that gives them a little better information. And we can also add a little description in case they need it to help understand what they should be doing with that field. This all looks good, and this is all the information we would want for our workers to collect new hydrants and edit existing ones while they're out in the field. So we can go ahead and save that layer. But we don't just want to capture new hydrants. We also want to capture inspections at each of the hydrants as well to understand what's going on. Here, if I open up the inspections form, we can see that I've configured a few more features that I didn't have previously, such as setting fields to being required and using arcade expressions to set conditional visibility, conditional requirements, and kind of auto calculations, such as the date. So, however, this looks pretty good, but we don't want to just want to configure information about the hydrant's defects. We also want to take information about any hazards that might appear while we're out looking at the hydrants. To do this, we can use the designer using drag and drop elements to create a new group called hazard information. Here we can start adding fields into this using the form builder and selecting different elements. The first thing that I want to do is create a simple switch that's yes or no on whether or not there's a hazard at each of the hydrants. To do this, we can just simply start editing the display name, and this will create a new field in our table. Here we can select the field type. We'll do a string, and we're going to use the on and off switch. For off, let's put no, and for on, let's put yes. Here, we can choose a default value for our switch, and my default value is going to be no. Lastly, if they say there's a hazard at each of the hydrants, we want to know what kind of hazard it is. So to do this, we can create a choice value here in the hazard information group. I'm going to do just a simple radio box that'll give them a few options to look at. So I'll do hazard type, and then we're going to go ahead and do a string. Here, when we create list, we can either add all of the options manually, or if we have a CSV already configured on our computer with the options, we can drag and drop it into the list here. This all looks good, so I'm going to go ahead and click done. This is all the information we're going to want them to use while they're out in the field for inspections. However, it's not completely done because I want to configure this form to make it a bit more streamlined. For example, when they select hazard is yes, we only want the hazard type option to pull up. To do this, we can use arcade expressions to determine whether it's conditionally visible and conditionally required. So to do that, I'll select the form logic here. I'll create a new expression, and we can call this something simple like hazard with a little question mark. And to do this, we'll just go in, select the field that we want, and we'll say hazard is yes. Very simple, but you can use arcade and the arcade editor to create much more complex expressions. Let's go ahead and click done. So that set the conditional visibility, but I want to make sure that they say that they fill this out whenever there is a hazard. So we can just go ahead and copy that exact same expression over to the requirement box. So now whenever they say hazard is yes, they'll see this box and they have to fill it out. That's perfect, so we can go ahead and save this form. So we've configured the forms, but we want to alert workers to any hazards while they're out in the field. To do this, we can create geofences on our map. And what this means is when they enter certain areas of the map, they can be alerted with a simple message telling them that there's a hazard to look out for. So since everything seems to be a hazard today, we'll call this hazardous hydrants. And we can choose a layer from our map to create the buffers around and the geofences. I'm going to select hydrant status. However, I don't want to select all of the hydrants. I only want to select the hydrants that are currently hazardous. So just like we did previously, we'll go in and replace hazard is yes. Now let's just add the buffer, make it a little bigger so we can see what's going on. And this will create small buffers around each of these hazardous hydrants. Lastly, we want to configure a small message that will appear on our worker's phone. We'll say, please take caution and alert public to the nearby hazard at location and street. And these are two dynamic fields that are populated from our table. This gives our workers a better understanding of exactly where these hazards may be while they get the message to their phone, so they know what to look out for. Let's go ahead and save that. Lastly, we want to configure an offline area to ensure that our workers can keep updating their data and navigating to locations even when they lose internet connection. To do this, let's go ahead and create a new map area. Here we have the option to draw a custom area around our data so that we can ensure that our workers have access to all the hydrants they need to inspect, but they're not overburdening their phone with extraneous information. To do this, we can go ahead and we can create a new polygon. And we'll do it so that we have access to all the data that we might possibly need, but no extra. Let's go ahead and do it like this. However, we also want to set the level of detail. In this case, we're going to want the maximum level of detail because we want to be as precise as possible. So let's go all the way up. But then we'll probably never use the map beyond here. So we can go ahead and change our slider to just right there. And that will set our level of detail for in and out. Let's go ahead and click Save. Now we've configured everything that we want to in the online view of the field maps. However, we want to check out how this looks to our mobile worker while they're out about on their phone using the offline version of our map. To do that, I'm just going to jump back to our slides and share a quick video about how this would all work. Here we are in the phone view, and if we open up the Field Maps app, we'll see both an online map as well as the offline map that we configured just a little while ago. If we click on the offline map and it pulls up, we'll see the extent of the map that we configured earlier. As we zoom out, we don't have any information, but as we zoom in, we can get quite a bit of information, all that we've configured previously. We can also go into our Layers tab, see all of the existing layers, and then turn layers on and off if we choose to. If we zoom in and select a hydrant, we can see some information about it, such as where it's located, its ID, the street, the area, and who it's owned by. We can also update the point, so we can edit the point's location on the map. Similarly, we can use the form we configured to edit information such as the proximity field and help our workers understand exactly where it is when they configure a new inspection. That's great, and we've submitted a new edit for that hydrant. However, since we're here, we want to create an inspection. So let's go ahead and add inspection and see how the smart form works. When I select yes, there is a defect, the defect type and defect information are going to pop up as two new fields below. When we click on defect type, we have one of 6 options, which is really nice because we can just select one of those and we don't need to type it in on our phone. Similarly, if we toggle hazard on, we'll see the hazard type and hazard information pop up on the fields below. That will work just like the defect type. Lastly, if we say inspection difficulty is easy, we'll no longer have to put a reason for it. And then, as we did before, we'll auto-populate the field of date with the phone's computer date and time. Let's go ahead and submit that. However, since we're working on an offline copy of our map, what we want to do is sync our local updates back to our ArcGIS Online when we have internet access. To do this, we'll just go ahead and sync our data. What this will do is it'll send our data directly into our ArcGIS Online, allowing us to share the edits that we made while we were out in the field. And that's the power of field maps. You can capture data anytime, anywhere, and sync it back to your ArcGIS Online so that you have up-to-date web maps and applications. With that, I'm going to pass over to Eve, who will be talking about Survey123.
Thank you so much, James. So Survey123 is a form-centric application for data collection. It makes it easy to author surveys in a browser or from your desktop, and then utilize these in the field within our mobile application. But what exactly does this mean, and what are some potential applications? So let's say that you work for an organization with a lot of green space or other land parcels, and you also have a wide network of volunteers who are willing to report updates on these sites on your behalf. Creating forms that are easy to design and to use, regardless of the mobile user's experience with the interface, is really important. So using both of Survey123's interfaces, we're going to be authoring a survey which captures information on parks and garden sites within the United Kingdom. So let's start with our web application. Survey123 has a web designer, which is its web interface, and this is a visual-based form builder. The big selling points here are that you can create a form quickly and easily through its speed and ease of use, especially given the drag and drop interface. Although it is more limited than the desktop application, that isn't to say that you can't create an incredibly comprehensive survey using a variety of question types that we see off to the right, as well as the configuration settings available. For example, if we look into our date and time, you can see that you can have default values to make it easy for data to automatically be put in, limiting the amount of work your volunteers have to do. But you can also add in additional validation means, such as required questions or narrowing down the scope to a specific date range. You could even cache answers. For example, if your volunteer is having to fill out a survey multiple times, caching something like their name would be really useful to minimize the repetition of tasks. In addition, these forms are still smart, meaning that you can streamline your survey through things like display rules or calculations. In this case, when volunteers rate the status of the green space amenities, they're only going to see the features in need of repairs when the ranking is a 2 stars or below, which minimizes the clutter seen on the form. Just to go through its speed and ease of use, we can highlight some of the calculations available. If we go and drag in a number question and then call this question total paths, we can then go into our calculation and select the questions that this data is pulled from. We can even customize this further. So if you're trying to collect data in the background, but you don't need your volunteers to be able to see specific information, you could hide the question from the survey. So the data is still being collected, but again, it minimizes what's on the screen. When it comes to form previews, you're able to see what your viewer is able to see depending on their device. So if you have field workers and they're going to be working on either tablets or mobile phones, you can curate the display to be able to check what they're going to see and structure the layout depending. This also allows us to highlight one of my favorite tools, which is new to the web designer, which is the ability to collect audio. This is useful in the case of soundscapes, as in the example for our nature space scenario, but it also has other really useful data collection purposes, like being able to collect voice memos or to capture another message quickly within the moment. And with that, we're now going to move on to our desktop application, which is Survey123 Connect. This allows you to take customization even further. It extends the functionality of the form, and I'm going to be taking you through 5 top tips in order to maximize on these capabilities. The first being to link any CSVs that you have for a streamlined form inputting. It's incredibly simple to do so, and all you need is to be able to link files within your media folder. In doing so, you can then create a much more streamlined form. For example, in the case of being able to autofill, if we go under the appearance section, all you need is to use the autocomplete signifier, name where you're pulling the information from, in this case, our National Heritage CSV, and then what information you'd like, in this case, the name of that green space. In doing so, when we type the name of a park that we'd like, it narrows down it for us, making it easy and dynamic to use. In addition, you can see towards the bottom that it's also given our volunteer supplementary information, such as the grade of the park and a hyperlink out to the park itself. This is an example of a cascading select, which you can also easily set up using the pull data function. If we go under our calculation column and use the pull data function, you're able to, again, just specify the CSV that you're pulling the information from, the information that you would like it to project outwards, and how you're linking it to that CSV. My next top tip is going to be about groups and repeats, which is a way that you can structure your survey. Groups is something that we talked about previously within our online application, which allows you to cluster questions based on relevancy, which helps with the organizational flow of the survey. But then repeats allow you to collect multiple data points within a single form. So if we say that our park is poorly maintained and perhaps its walk paths are in need of repairs, if we wanted to add photos, we could add multiple photos at once. And this allows you to have a more time-efficient data input because you're not having to resubmit the form per item. In order to create these on the XLS side of things, all you have to do is signal where you want to begin the groups and repeats, and then again, end the groups and repeats. My third tip is to do with the aesthetic side of things. And this allows you to capitalize on using a small amount of HTML in order to really visually structure your survey. In this case, if we look towards the left-hand side of the screen, you can see that the further assessment needed is centered and in a bright color to signify a sense of urgency. In order to create this symbology, all you'd need to do is go into the label column, center the text, and then use the style forms or style elements, such as the background color and then the color of the text, as well as what text you want to be said. As someone who has very little experience using HTML, I found that this was intuitive to use, especially considering we have a variety of community forums talking about all of these HTML requests. My fourth tip is to do with integrating images. So when it comes to images, this could be a really useful way for volunteers to collect photos of the green space for detailed documentation. But not only could you capture an image using Connect, you could create your own annotation using a template palette. And if you don't really know what I'm talking about, then I am happy to show you. If we go into the path repair type and we access the camera, and let's say that we're going in and we have a piece of octopus-shaped litter, we can then go into our annotations and you'd be able to capture different aspects of the park based on holes, litter, cracks in the pavement, or adding additional comments. All you'd need to do to be able to configure this is to have a media file with the palette specifications, and then you can curate this however you'd like. So if you'd like different colors or different shapes, you'd be able to input all of these using one of our templates, and then all you'd need to do is bring it into the media file. With this, you can then capture your image and add as many as you'd like, again, capitalizing on that repeat element. In order for the form to recognize that this is a file that you're using, you just need to insert it into the body Esri style aspect, where you're specifying the name of the palette and then the method which you're using to take the photo, in which case the device's camera. And then my final and last top tip, it's to do with inbox queries. So once you've configured the form, you've filled it out, what do you do next? How could you use this information provided by your green space volunteers to trigger some sort of action? And this is where the inbox alerts come in. So if we go over to our options and enable our inbox, you can see that there's an additional option for a query expression. These inbox queries allow you to assign tasks in a way to mobile workers so that it appears only in their Survey123 inboxes within the mobile app. This allows you to filter features for mobile workers to limit their scope, which makes it easier to see what needs maintenance without overwhelming the mobile worker with a bunch of other irrelevant submissions. In this case, all you'd have to do is select the feature that you'd like to have an inbox query based off of, in this case, the status of the paths, and I want inbox workers to only see a submission in their inbox if the status of the path is a 2. As you can see, Survey123 has a variety of powerful capabilities in order to create a variety of different forms which suit your needs. And although there isn't time in this session to talk about its reporting applications, I did want to let you know that once your data is collected, there are reporting capabilities to both see and analyze your data in real time. This not only includes an overview of the number of surveys and unique survey participants, but also breakdowns of responses to each of the questions. And with that, I'd love to pass it back to Claudia.
Thank you, Eve. Brilliant. So we really hope today you've seen how each of these mobile apps can support your mobile workers to collect data as efficiently as possible while out in the field. And just to reiterate, with each of these mobile apps, as you collect that data out in the field, is then automatically going to be stored in your feature layer within your ArcGIS content. So even if you're working in disconnected environments, it's then going to be uploaded to your feature layer as soon as that connection is then made again to your device. So with that, we really hope you have enjoyed this webinar. We're going to be taking a bit of a break from webinars for both May and June, as we have our annual conference in London next month. But we'd love for you to join us again in July, which is our next ArcGIS update. So for these, which we kicked off with our first one with our spring update last month, but in these webinars, we run through all of our latest updates and changes to the ArcGIS system, including for this summer update, we'll be doing a bit of a walkthrough of how you can migrate to Experience Builder following the retirement announcement of ArcGIS Web App Builder, as well as many other updates and demos as well. So do come along to that if you're keen to stay up to date with the ArcGIS system. We're now going to go into the Q&A. So thank you very much to everyone that's already submitted your questions. We've had a lot come in, so we've got just over about 8 minutes to answer as many as we can. So kicking things off, the first one is, does QuickCapture work offline? And does the user full name variable also work offline? So absolutely, yes, you can use QuickCapture offline. You can make use of offline maps within your content, which you can configure in the settings of each of your web maps. And then it's just a case of you're going to want to sign into your QuickCapture on your mobile while you've still got a connection. And then you can go out into the field in your disconnected environments. You can collect all of your data. And then it's just a case of it's going to stay stored on your device until you've then got a connection again. And then it will be uploaded onto your feature layer in your content. In terms of, does the user full name variable also work offline? If by that you mean, is it going to collect that device variable, so the username that's signed in to that QuickCapture app, then absolutely, yes, it can do that. Next, we've got, can you set up multiple buttons at once in QuickCapture? You need every button to capture time, location, and username. For this, I don't believe there's a way. So like how I specified device variable for each of them, I don't think there's a way I could then do that for every single button I had in my app. If you've got the fixed variables, so like the species name, mine was a fixed variable, that is the same across all of my buttons. So it's reducing the amount that I need to set up. But it's not something that does take too long, but I don't think there is a way that you can set up multiple buttons in QuickCapture now. Another QuickCapture question, when using location sharing, is it possible to set up geofences? So geofencing at the moment is just a field maps capability. I haven't heard of the geofencing coming to QuickCapture. So at the moment, no, only geofencing is possible in field maps. We've got a Survey123 question now. I don't know if you're okay to cover this one, Eve.
Yes, is this about the caching?
It's about, can you use the inbox function of Survey123 to oh, okay, now it's the cache question. They're going up and down with the upvoting, so yeah, you go for it.
So when it comes to caching an answer, there are a few different ways that, or caching an entire survey, there are a few different ways that you could do this. You can cache an entire survey on the mobile application by adding it to your favorites. In terms of caching an entire survey or like other workarounds, you could also have it as an option when you're building the survey to allow people to have drafts that are saved, and then it's cached in the browser until it's submitted. But then it should be kept in mind that there are a few restrictions on when you're caching individual questions. There are certain questions which would not allow you to cache them, such as a photo.
Brilliant, thank you, Eve. Now the most upvoted is there any panic or safety button to inform the team member while studying alone at the remote site? So QuickCapture doesn't have this capability. I can't think of a way. So at the moment, no, it's not used as a emergency tracking application. So no for that one. We've now got another Survey123 question, if you're free, Eve.
Yes. I'm not quite sure what gamifying collection means. So I don't think I will be able to answer the question at the moment, just because I'm a little unsure of what the user is or the participant is getting at.
Yeah, I think just the big thing to say with the inbox function of Survey123 is, as you mentioned, Eve, it's a brilliant way to essentially filter down all of your features. So if you've got your mobile workers, you might have 3,000 features, but you're only wanting them to go and inspect the ones that have are classified as needing maintenance. You can then set up that where clause in your inbox function to then filter down all of those features, and they'll only see the ones that require inspection. I don't know if we have answered your question there, but hopefully the inbox function is a little bit clearer.
Thank you for the additional context, Claudia.
You're all good. What else have we got here? So for QuickCapture, is there an option to add any non-auto capture fields so that the user can add just a few essential details or comments? There is, I know, so where I showed that you can specify if it's a fixed value from the device variable, there are a couple other options. I know there's button user input. I think you might be able to do something there. I can't confirm that, but I think there might be the ability to do that. It's worth having a look. If you go to the QuickCapture documentation, you should be able to find something in there, but I think that is possible. Let's go into, oh, they're all moving around. Survey123, is there going to be future development on the web app to add the repeat option? I don't know if you're okay to go for that one as well, Eve.
I was looking into it at the moment, and as of 2021, there was talk of wanting to, or the app designers being conscious of wanting to integrate that in as well. I will look into the future plans to see if there's been anything more recent. But I think it is something that is on their mind, as it has been raised within the community forum.
Brilliant. Very quickly, are non-Esri users or individuals without a Go account able to submit things like Survey123, QuickCapture? So you can absolutely, for example, Survey123, you could set up the survey to be public, and then you can send out a link and you can get responses from people without an AGO account. So that is doable, yes. I'm just very conscious of time, and I appreciate that we haven't covered many field map questions. So I don't know if, James, you're free to maybe cover. We've had a couple upvotes on how can I make point location information not editable in field maps after collecting them. Are you there, James, to answer that one?
Yeah, not a problem. For that, you'll go into the kind of the data layer of that feature layer that you're editing. So in that case, you'll just go into settings and choose the what kind of editing is allowed. And you can choose whether or not you want to add, delete, or update. And then you can choose whether you want to allow for updates of attributes or attributes and geometry. If you turn off attributes and geometry, they won't be able to move it around on the map. If you turn off update, they won't be able to edit the attributes either. so you can keep just add available, if that makes sense. That's in the settings of your feature layer rather than the field maps designer.
Brilliant. Thank you, James. Sadly, we've run out of time. Thank you so much to everyone that has submitted your questions. We got to as many as we can, but I really appreciate all those other ones coming in as well. If you do have a spare minute, we'd love if you could fill out the polls that we've got on Slido at the moment, or if you'd like to provide more additional feedback, perhaps let us know what you'd like to see from future webinars or how you found this one, then please do. You'll find the survey in the follow-up email, which we'll be sending after this webinar. So thank you very much again to everyone for attending, and have a great rest of your day. Thank you.
Thanks.